Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. So, we're at our first week since the new ban list update. Uh, I already showcased the deck that I've been thinking of playing for this format. However, at locals, at very last minute, I chose to change the strategy that I was intentional of playing. And so this is going to be a deck report involving a new deck as compared to the punk deck profile that I did last week. I think that we're in a very experimental format. A lot of people are just going to be playing a lot of decks that are pretty much on their comfort zone until the release of Maze of Millennia. After Maze of Millennia gets released, I think we're going to start seeing a small fluctuation between decks, which are going to be a little bit more preferred, involving some cards that are going to be released. And then next month, exactly 1 month from now, on February 8th, we're getting Phantom Nightmare, and that's going to be like a real game changing set. That set is going to pretty much define the format more than what it is at the moment. So, if you've been tuning into this channel in the past week or so, you already know that I've been tinkering around with Tearlaments. This is a deck that I'm aiming to be playing towards this next format. Uh, I'll give you a disclaimer right now. I don't have anything planned for anything Snake Eye related as my main strategy throughout this format. For those who are interested in seeing like my take and my concept and idealism involving the hybrid and those like engines, uh, I will be sure to update you guys, give you deck profiles, and probably talk about stuff that people overlook when it comes to like that strategy as a whole. But at the current moment, that is not going to be my main focus throughout this format. Maybe it'll change sometime in the future. So I chose Tearlaments, and the main reason for it is because this is very very close to the list that I want to play post Maze of Millennia and post Phantom Nightmare. If you've been tuning into this channel, you've been paying attention. You already know that I already played this card on both Maze of Millennia and Phantom Nightmare post formats, and I've actually been liking it a lot. I kind of want to see what happened under the new list because I know that a lot of people are underestimating Tearlaments right now. Um, like the deck did not lose its consistency, however, it did lose a lot of power involving two key cards, which are Agido and Kelvek. However, that does not mean that Tier is like not playable by any means. Uh, I know there are some players around, like for example, Shupin Shu, who are like piloting and experimenting the deck, even under the new format. So yeah, I'm going to showcase you my list, and then we'll explain everything as we go along, like we always do. Without further ado, let's begin. So 3 Rhino Heart, 3 Tear Cash, Merely, Havness, Sharon. That's it for the tier monsters. Visa Starfrost, Visa Samsara, Skirkla Reichart, Nessie, Mothman, I'm Seti, Happy, Fusion Parasite, Mudora, Keldo. That's it for monsters. I think it's 25. Spells, Primeval Planet, FBG, Scream, Arrival, Rayphobia, Kingsark, Terraforming Rhoda Monster Reborn. I will explain this. Trap cards, triple Soliac, and 1 Tribute Karma. Extract, 2 Lightheart, Cross Sheep, Mud, Stapelia, Grapha, Roll Kalos, Kaleido Heart, Astra, Diabolantis, Baron, Typhon, Zombie Vampire, Redoer. This is supposed to be SP Little Knight. I returned it. I already had one coming in the mail. So as of tomorrow, or when SP arrives, this is SP Little Knight. I did play SP Little Knight in the tournament. The card I played instead of SP was Typhon. Typhon is a post-tournament add-on, which I'm going to explain once I get to explain like my locals experience. Side deck, 2 Nibs, Jackalope, Thunderbird, Bigfoot, Response Team, Triple Droplet, Triple Super Poly, Double Twin Twisters, and Duster. Okay, so a lot of things to explain here. If you are not familiar and or are new to this channel, you're probably confused as why I'm playing the Scareclaw engine in this deck, involving like the double Lightheart. I already showcased the combo in another video, but I'm going to make it super easy for everyone and just show the 1-card combo involving Visa Samsara. That way you don't have to scroll through my channel and look for older videos, me explaining it. But essentially, the 1-card combo in this deck, and the reason I chose this engine over Bestials, over Beatrice, over Bahamut Shark and Toad, over like any other engine like that you usually see in tier, like the Destiny Heroes, Malicious, is because this 1-card combo plays through Dweller. It does not play through Droll, sadly, but it plays through Dweller. It makes a lot of interruptions against your opponent, and it pretty much really good at breaking boards itself, and it pretty much forces your opponent to just start hitting the wrong cards in your deck, because essentially if they focus on the Tearlaments portion of your cards, then they're not playing into this, which means they're just gonna lose into like whatever you're trying to do with this engine. But I'll showcase you the combo. Basically, you normal Samsara, you link away Samsara into Lightheart. Lightheart adds you Rayphobia. Rayphobia adds you Reichheart. You special the Reichheart. Reichheart grabs you Arrival, which we're playing 3 of. You activate Arrival. Arrival, you bring back the Samsara. And then you have 2 options here. Option number 1 is you synchro these 2 into Diabolantis. The Diabolantis is going to send the Fusion Parasite to the graveyard. So this right here. and then you banish both the Samsara and the right heart to summon Vicious Astronaut. And then you XYZ these two into the vampire. And depending on what you mill with your vampire, you should detach Astrolabe here. You can try to like get into a tier name or try to get something that gets you to a tier name. Between the 3 Reno Hearts and the 3 Tier Cash and the 3 Sirens, you essentially have like 9 cards that you want to mill. If you mill Soliac, it gets you to a tier name as well. And that can get you to tier cash, and tier cash can just summon itself, and you just keep dumping cards in advantage. And eventually you'll get to use the Fusion Parasite, which means that you have access to either Roll Kalos or Grapha. So that's combo number 1. Now let's show you combo number 2, which is it starts the same way. So let's put all these back. Let's put these here. Let's put this here. Let's put this here and this here. So Samsara into Lightheart, Lightheart into Rayphobia, Rayphobia into Rightheart into Arrival. Arrival bring this back. And now what you're going to do, and this is where the combo changes. You take these two and make the Mantis again. And the Mantis sends the Parasite. But now it's a little bit different, because now what you can do is you link these two into cross shape. You banish for Astra. And you're probably familiar with this line if you played Vanadium. Now you're going to use cross shape effect, and you're going to bring back Fusion Parasite. And for those who don't know what Fusion Parasite does, it does have a field effect. Essentially, when it's special summoned, you can fusion summon using it as a material. So what you're going to do is you fuse these two away, and your fusions of choice are either Grapha, Stapelia, or Muddragon. So you essentially have an access to any of these 3, just using Visa Samsara. And this is a 1-card combo, and it plays through Dweller. At least this part of the combo plays through Dweller, because everything's on the that you're doing is on the field and it's not in the graveyard. Banishing from Astrolabe is not a graveyard effect; it's just a summoning condition, so it also bypasses Dweller. So this is essentially like the combo line that I'm doing with these cards. If you've been on this channel since last year, you'll know that I've been playing Scareclaw for the longest time as a strategy. So I pretty much figured out a lot of ways that you can incorporate the Visas engine in like a plethora of strategies, and I think in Tearlaments is like the best way to play it at the moment. So since now you know like the reason for the Visas engine, as opposed to like other engines like the Destiny Heroes, let's talk about a few ratios. The reason I'm maxing out on Reichardt and the reason I'm playing multiple Rayphobias in Arrival is because in the off chance that I open these cards, I can essentially combo off with them, and I don't care if any extra copies that are milled. The one card I don't want milled is the Rayphobia, and I kind of want as many copies of Rayphobia as possible, which prompted me to play just multiple copies of all these cards, because I'd rather have redundant copies of these and just have good follow-up and good level of recursion and power in my deck than like not having these at all and just end up milling all of these and not having proper place with it outside of just banishing for Astrolabe. Opening Reichardt is not the worst thing in the world, because it's not as strong as opening Samsara, but there is still a few combos you can do with this. Like for example, you can right heart, grab a rival. You can link this into the light heart. Lightheart grabs Rayphobia. Rayphobia grabs you Visa Starfrost. And then you can summon Visas, pop in the Lightheart. Lightheart can reborn itself. You can use a rival. A rival bring back the Lightheart. Make Baron the floor with these two. And then you can relink the Lightheart into a second copy, which grabs you another copy of Rayphobia for like a later turns. And this essentially is really strong because you have access to Baron with the floor, and you have access to follow up like on the next turn. And this is all without mentioning that you still have access to Vicious Astrolabe. So you can essentially just banish these, summon Astrolabe, and if you want to make another disruption alongside the Baron, you just turn these into SP Little Knight, which is, you know, my just pretend this is SP Little Knight until like in the future. But yeah, like just ending on SP Baron with just one right card, it's not that bad, and you still have like primitive planet for next turn. So you just grab another right card and just like keep playing from there in the future. So I really like this engine. I think this engine should be explored more, at least in Tearlaments, not just in Vanadium. So now that you know about this engine, let's talk about the ratios. You're maxing out on Samsara, that's pretty obvious. I explained the ratios behind these cards. Let's talk about Soliak. So you notice I'm now playing Meta Noise. I think Meta Noise, until the release of Rollback with Maze of Millennia, I think Meta Noise is just not that good. And when it comes to Tearlaments, I want my mills to like be a way of me playing my engine, and not have it to be a means into just playing more powerful cards with my engine. Uh, what I mean by that is, if I mill Meta Noise too early and I don't have like any real tier names that I want from my graveyard, the card essentially does nothing. The card is only searchable by Scream and by Trivia Karma. So essentially, I don't have like a really like strong position into like using Meta Noise. And my logic behind Meta Noise is, if you're setting up Meta Noise, that means you're already in a favorable position, because that Meta Noise could have been a Soliak that you could have used like with your tier monster and just like keep playing from there. Milling Soliak means that essentially something you can do is something, well, at least something I've been doing a lot, is with Soliak, you just grab the tier cache, and tier cache, you just banish the Soliak, and it's a free summon that can just mill 3, and it's another beater. If you open the Soliak, another really cool thing about Soliak is that if you open it, it is a very solid card that you can hit with Danger Nessie and Mothman. So if you end up resolving the dangers, hitting your Soliak out of your hand, it essentially becomes a +1, because you end up drawing, summoning a body, and this grabs you like another tier name or another body that you can use outright. For the dangers, because I know that you saw some dangers in the side, Nessie is the best danger, like not only by name but just by like ability to be played in this deck. Being a Dark Aqua is a very big deal. You notice there's no Garura in this list. I don't own Garura at the moment. I also bought it in the mail. But the other thing about Garura is that Since I'm not playing a build focused on Beatrice, I don't essentially need Garura to be my summon, uh, like as a priority. However, it is nice to have because you can make Baron with it in Samsara. You can do other plays with it. But Ness is super extremely important because you am playing Kaleido Heart, and Kaleido Heart does require two Aqua monsters. So essentially, it's there for that purpose. So in the side deck, I'm playing Response Team as well as three more Dangers. I think the Dangers are really good at like trying to contest boards. It also helps to out floodgates. Two of these Dangers are level 8, so you can make Vampire with them as well. I think Danger Response Team is a really good card. If you're playing like multitudes of dangers, if you're playing less than 5 dangers, then this card is not that great. However, if you're playing multiple dangers like I do in the side, this card is essentially really strong. It's also searchable by Nessie, and this card can actually put itself back into the deck. So if you need it for like later in the future, you can just recur from it. Uh, it also has a mill effect, so if you end up milling this card, like it has a graveyard effect, so if you end up milling this card and you already have a danger in your hand, it turns your danger into a +1 while this is returning back to your deck. So in the future, if you're playing Tearlaments and you are playing your standard danger package, you should really highly consider this card. I think this card is phenomenal, especially with Danger Nessie. It pretty much turns into a +1. I don't regret this engine at all. I drew into it twice, and it won me both times, both duels that I drew it. Once against Orcust and once against Fire Kings. Other unorthodox ratios to talk about. Two Sarks with the 3 Imseti and the 1 Happy. So, in the past, when Age of Overlord first got released, I thought Horus was a very mediocre engine in tier. Like, and the main reason for that is because it really did not provide anything to the Tearlament deck that the deck was lacking. Like, the deck already had enough ways to mill their cards. This does not trigger your tier names if you send them from your hand to a graveyard. And if you end up milling your sarcophagi before getting to your MZMI, you essentially just have dead cards in your hand that just have no function. Uh, at this current format that we're at right now, I think the Horus cards are phenomenal. We already play an engine in the game that gives us multiple level 8 monsters, so it makes it a lot easier to make Vampire with alongside these cards. Another thing to note is that like these cards can summon themselves from the graveyard, like even on the Dweller or even on the like graveyard like cards. I played against a Bestial Horus deck this weekend, and my Bestial Orcust opponent banished 2 of my Imsetis because they did not want me to summon them from the graveyard. And essentially, what ended up happening is I got to my 3rd Imseti. I managed to summon it. I made Vampire, and I started milling into my tier cards. And since my opponent already exhausted their Bestials to get rid of these, essentially what they did is they lost the cards that give them an edge against my tier cards, and that ultimately just ended up on snowballing advantage, which just ended up winning me the game. So in the future, if you are playing Tearlaments, any version of it, you should really consider the Horus cards. I really underestimated them, and they overperformed for me this weekend. Doesn't matter if it's the Samsara version or the Destiny Hero version, um, or like the Beatrice version with other miscellaneous card, or the Bahamut card version. You should really just consider these cards. So, other cards to note. I guess we can talk about Monster Reborn. Post Phantom Nightmare, we're moving into a format where manipulation from the graveyard is super, super important. Meaning that, like, if you play cards like Monster Reborn and Autonomous Action Unit or like the Charmer monsters, they're all going to be very, very helpful because you are essentially just like uh, forcing your opponent to use their resources from their graveyard, or just take away resources your opponent can have from the graveyard that could be impactful throughout the duel. Like, I played against a Fire King opponent and I ended up like reborning his Garunix with the Reborn, and that forced them to activate Fire King Circle, which then forced them to use Kirin effect, and forced them to. It basically forced these Fire King cards a little bit too early, and they just played into like the other cards that I already had on board. So essentially, this is if you have space for Monster Reborn in your deck, either the main or the side, you should really, really, really consider it. I'll probably make a video on it in the future. It's one card. That's one card I don't regret playing. So the Chizu cards, we don't have the Millers anymore, meaning that essentially both the hand effects of these two cards lost their value. There's no real way to play these cards outside of just milling them. I drew into these a couple of times, which is not the worst thing in the world. Like, you can pitch them with Sarcophagi, you can pitch them with the Dangers, you can pitch them with Tearlaments Sharon as well. So, like, it's not like the worst combination you can think of when you like draw into these. But I feel like we're in a format where graveyard decks are being very popular, like Fire King's Rescue Ace, Orcust, like, are all real prime examples of this. Labyrinth is another real good example of this. So I feel like moving forward, you should just keep playing these cards if you can play them in your deck. And I guess I can explain Rhinoheart. I'm not playing Bahamut Shark. I'm not playing Toad. However, this is a 1521. So this helps make Zastra loud as a material, which already merits value on it. And the other value that you merit from this is that in the mid to late game, like, any top deck into Rhinoheart just becomes very, very strong, because essentially just like uses the resources that you already have in your graveyard with your tier names. One fun fact that probably people overlook or don't know, and that's one of the other reason why the Visas engine is very strong. All these Tearlament cards, like Soliac, Scream, like Meta Noise, Grief, like all the tier cards, they also work with Visa Starfrost. So if you have Visa Starfrost or Samsara summoned, you can mill 3 with the Scream, you can negate with the Soliac, you can use Meta Noise if you choose to play it. And like, knowing this also adds value into Trivic Karma, because now Trivic Karma, not only does it add your tier cards, it can also add Skirclaw Arrival, it can add Planet Recphobia, it can add essentially like a few other cards that just like help you with your Visas engine, which is another reason why I think like maxing out on Foolish Goods is like not the worst thing in the world, because in the mid to late game, you can just grab other stuff other than Pearl Rhino with the Trivic Karma. And if you already milled Trivic Karma and you already use Trivic Karma, then you can just dump Soliac, which is another reason why I'm maxing out Soliac in this deck. I think that's it for explanations. Uh, you already saw the combo. You already saw like a lot of stuff. Cards that I missed. I missed triple tactic talents. I think that card should have been played. Uh, I don't think Nibiru as my only hand trap is like super ideal. I just went with the flow, thinking that this is like that, one of the better hand traps we have in the format. However, you really just don't need this card. This card is also not that good against you either, like the tier deck. So in the future, these might just become talents or thrust or something else. I like the dangers. I think the dangers were fine. Uh, never drew into Twin Twisters, but moving forward, I might remove Twin Twisters from my deck and just play Cosmic Cyclone. And the number one reason I'm doing that is because people are protecting their back row a lot more, or they're protecting their floodgates. Like for example, my Orcust opponent had Dingirsu with summon limit, and this does not get rid of that because the Dingirsu just protects it. Against Fire King, they have the Sanctuary to just protect their spells by just substituting their destruction with fire monsters. So this also doesn't work there either. So moving forward, I think I'll be playing Cosmic Cyclone. Super Poly was alright. I think if you're playing Tearlaments, you should really play this card in either in your main or your side. If your deck can afford to play this in their extra deck, you should be playing this in your extra deck, because we're moving in a format where this card is really strong, just like making Mud Dragon or Garura, just to give an example. I never drew into droplets, so I'm indifferent on like if I were to play this. However, I essentially think this card is really strong. But yeah, that's pretty much it for explanations. Like, there's a lot of ways for you to play Tearlaments at the moment. This is the way it has been working out for me. Once Maze of Millennia gets released, I will be playing another version of this deck. If you already seen this channel by now, you already seen what I'm trying to like work with. But yeah, until then, keep practicing and keep dueling.